Welcome to A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm your host, Eric P. Bishop. This is a podcast where interesting people come and tell about the stories they've crafted. As for myself, I'm an author. I've created novels, short stories, novellas, and even poetry. If you'd like to find out more about what I've done, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. And today I am welcome to have Bobby Mathews on the program. Bobby, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Good to
Doing
see you.
very well. Thank you for coming on. We obviously talk online a little bit here and there, but I have not seen you since BoucherCon in Minneapolis.
I know. I blame you for, just avoiding me for 2 years now. It's been terrible.
The earring scares me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
The earrings are new. I've gotten some ink since the last time you saw me. I actually have a couple of tattoos that I just got that are have the new skin on them. So I gotta peel that off a couple of
Still
days.
healing.
Yes, while they're healing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's as we talked a little bit offline before we came on, life happens. I miss my writing community and I'll do my darndest to hopefully make an event this year. And then hopefully the years coming on, I'm going to try to pick up and do two or three a year. Um, it's one of the things we can actually talk about because people that are listening for audiences might not know much about conferences, but conferences are a wonderful opportunity for writers to spend time with other writers, which you don't get to do
Absolutely.
very often. Uh,
We all sit in a quiet room or we sit somewhere in our head
mhm.
and we do the thing that we do, and it's a very introverted thing,
Yes.
you know. Especially if you're somebody like me who also is pretty extroverted
Hmm.
at the same time, right? So it's good to be around other people who just know what you do and know what you're going through,
Yeah.
you know.
The networking side of it is the most necessary and I think cathartic part of the process. The
Mm.
conferences themselves are great. I'm not going to knock them, but it's spending time with the other writers that really I think was what you get the most out of it. Panels are fun. I've been on a few panels in my life and enjoyed listening to some panels. But those times sitting there at the bar, going out to dinner, which I think we went out to even lunch once or twice in Minneapolis
Mhm.
with a group of people. Those times are when you really get to have those connections that I think mean a lot and kind of fill you up in a way, kind of give you that energy you need to move forward.
Absolutely. You see other people who are going through the same struggles that you are. I mean, and again, not to badmouth any conference, but there are only so many times you can sit through a panel on, how do you appropriately use dialogue tags or what makes a short story work. We all have opinions about that stuff, and sometimes
Right.
you get into better discussion about that stuff in the bar afterward or in a restaurant having lunch with some people that you've met just that day.
Hmm. Well, like you just touched on, there's so many ways to do it. I remember years ago, the first 3 years of conferences I went to were all Thriller Fest in New York. And I remember sitting through one of the lectures from Steve Barry, who's, extremely successful, great series out there. One of his things he kept pointing to was the first words in every chapter should be the name of your protagonist, basically, or whoever the point of view is for that chapter. And it's
Hmm.
like, really, for me, the body man, every chapter has to start the body man or Nick or really?
Hmm. Yeah.
Is that did Moses have that written down somewhere that I have to follow that one as well? It's like, man, that's not cool.
I get that. I get that viewpoint because you're trying to throw your reader a lifeline, especially if you have a changing, like the book that I have out now to a few select agents. Man, I sound like a big deal there.
You
Um,
are.
uh, it has a lot of changing perspective. So
Gotcha.
I do early in each of the chapters, if the perspective is changing, I make sure to mention who it is.
Hmm.
You know, and there are other ways to do that too. Like, you know, you could have the character's name at the beginning of the chapter, like as like a subchapter
Yes.
thing. So there's so many ways to do what we do. The fun thing is that we actually all do it the same way. We write one word at a time,
Hmm.
and you try to build that Lego set, man.
Yep. And until you finished it, you don't have anything to fix, really. You got to finish
Absolutely.
it, then you can spend years if you want fixing it. But that's what I
Absolutely.
always tell people. They're like, well, it's so daunting. It's like, it is daunting. But if you sat down every morning or every night just for 30 minutes, turn off Netflix, turn off whatever. I don't want to say turn off the NCAA tournament right now because I know, that's going on and we don't want to we don't want to get into that. But
Hmm. Oh, we
but you
can
know
get
what?
into that because Alabama's in the Final Four for the first time ever.
I know,
I'm
and by the time
fine.
this will air, we'll see how that shook out for them.
Oh, they're going into a buzzsaw. It's fine. It's fine.
Not a problem. But there's just there's so many ways to do it, but until you spend the time and finish whatever project it is, whether it's and I can't wait to talk to you about it because one thing that I respect about you amongst many things is the fact that you're not just this person that writes this one thing. You've mentioned before, you have a reporting background. You've written newspaper articles, short story compilations, novels. It's cool creatively to meet people that really don't just get too hyper focused on one thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's neat to see people stretch and reach
Yeah.
and try different things.
Well, you talk about short story collections. I just happen to have one here.
Speaking
No,
of which,
um, every moment that you can do a self promo is a good moment, right? Um,
100%. Yeah. So talk about negative tilt. Come on, let's don't hold the book and then don't
yeah,
tease
okay. So,
everybody.
I like to tease people on occasionally. You've seen me at the bar. So Negative Tilt is out now. It just came out March 19th, from Shotgun Honey. It is a compilation of 28 short stories. I tried to get my publisher to call it Negative Tilt, the 20 best stories, and eight we couldn't that we couldn't get rid of otherwise. Um, so Negative Tilt is a little bit different from a lot of stuff. I don't just do so there are some literary stories in there.
Hmm.
There's some stories that are borderline romance. There's some stories in there that are horror. And for me, I'm unreliable. You talk about it being, I don't just write one thing, but the fact is that I am unreliable. I don't just write crime novels, I don't think.
Hmm.
I see something that interests me and
Yep.
I go for it. And um, so you can't say, oh, Bobby's going to have this series, like some authors do.
Right.
Uh, he's going to do this series. Well, I might write a private detective novel like I wrote in Magic City Blues.
Hmm.
It's a de facto callback to the days of Spencer and guys like that. Or Living the Gimmick, which is also it's an amateur detective novel, and despite
Hmm.
the bloody nature of the business. So, for those of you who don't know, it's set in the 1980s world of pro wrestling, or at least
Hmm.
half of it is. So, I intentionally set it in a very exciting time period with big personalities, but I play fair with the mystery,
Hmm.
right? I give you, and what we mean by playing fair is I give you all of the clues that you need to solve the crime.
Unravel it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that when I reveal who the killer is, you either have to say, "Oh, I should have seen that coming," or "I knew it." One of those two reactions. Either "How did I miss that?" or "I knew that's who it was going to be all along."
Right.
So, and try to make it satisfying for either one of those reactions.
Hmm.
The newest thing that I've finished is tentatively titled True Believers,
Okay.
and it is a Southern noir sort of thing that kind of addresses what happens when you preach hate from the pulpit.
Hmm.
as part of your faith, and
Hmm.
how that can tear apart friendships and families and even whole communities.
Yeah, 100%.
So, True Believers is kind of me taking a bigger swing, and that's the one that's out with some agents right now.
Okay.
And I'm waiting to hear some feedback from uh and I will sound like I'm bragging. I won't say who it is, but a couple of guys who are pretty big as far as agents. So I'm hoping that they'll either say yes or they'll say rewrite this and send it back to me. You know, one of the two.
It's gonna go one way or the other.
I hope so. I hope so. I would like to make the jump from what I'm doing right now, which is, working with a small press.
Hmm.
I'd like to make the jump from a small press to a major publisher.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
100%.
and I think this is the time to do it.
Well, and if you believe in your work and if you believe on the path you're on, I think other people, I believe in energy in life. And, it's kind of circling back to what you said before about writing what's like interesting you or a different type of stuff. If it's something that I think that just comes through in the written word versus if you pigeonhole yourself into saying, okay, I write political, because I've written two political thrillers in a row. Okay, I write political thrillers, and well, that's making the bacon, so I'm gonna just keep sticking with that. Man, if I'm not feeling that though, then I do need to pivot and I need to transition to something that excites me. I've got a political thriller coming out in June. And the next book that's coming out is more in end of the year, more military. Then I flip to an assassin one
Mhm.
sometime 2025, summer of 2025. So I'm kind of like, and then in the meantime, I'm also working on something we were talking before about horror. I'm working on something in the horror realm, which is something I know nothing about, but I'm
Mhm.
excited about the idea. So to me, creatively, to find stuff that excites me, that's at least going to put me in the right direction to hopefully exciting other people.
So the thing that I find interesting, I had part of this conversation with somebody, um, actually just Friday, I think.
Okay.
So I have a friend who started off trying to write fantasy novels. He's,
Hmm.
he's a big fantasy fan. You know him, Mark Westmoreland.
Yeah.
All right. So um, Mark, now I have not read his fantasy work, but he told me it sucks. So it's like I'm a big fantasy fan, but my fantasy writing was not good, is what is kind of how he told me.
Yeah.
I think actually he did say that it sucked. And Mark, who is one of my favorite people, for Mark with the size of his ego to say that something he did was not good, it
Right.
was, I'll take his word.
Yeah.
He started writing crime
Hmm.
and set in his native state of Georgia, and it's the thing that called to him.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that sold for him first. And
Right.
so if that's what's going to sell, that's the thing that it makes sense to pursue.
Hmm.
Donald Westlake, who's my idol at the
Yeah.
keyboard, right? Westlake is was past master, grand master for Mystery Writers of America,
Hmm.
uh, and he wrote whatever came to mind, but it was all in the crime milieu, right?
Hmm.
So the thing was, he started off as a science fiction writer.
Hmm.
Started off writing science fiction stories and science fiction novels. There's a out of print book that's actually back in print on ebook called Anarchaeos
Okay.
of his, but he couldn't sell stuff in the science fiction realm in the same way that he could sell in the crime and mystery genre.
Hmm.
And so when you're trying to be a professional writer and you'd like to, support yourself
Yeah.
by at least partially, it'd be nice,
Yeah.
Um, if you're trying to support yourself, you're going to gravitate to what sells.
Yeah. 100%.
So,
100%. Yeah, it's such the business side of it. I mean, I've learned so much just in the past year of going indie and trying to I knew some stuff, but you don't know what you don't know. So when you
Hmm.
dive into that world and you realize all the pieces you have to learn, I mean, for me, probably for 3 months, that was my job. I didn't write at all. I had to figure out, how do I set up an LLC? How do I set up a book imprint? Um, what do you do for formatting? And so I started, just querying a bunch of different, self-published authors I know. It's like, well, what do you use for formatting software? And I had one person who's done pretty well. They were formatting everything in Microsoft Word and then telling me these horror stories when they'd go to upload it in Amazon. And I'm like, so I'd ask the next person, what do you use? Well, we use Atticus, or we
Hmm.
use, and they went through a couple different softwares. And so I went back to this person. I'm like, dude, I just bought it. It's $147 for a lifetime. Now, if you don't have 147, I get that. Totally I get it.
Hmm.
But you can use that software for the rest of every book you ever self-publish.
Hmm.
It's idiot proof. And if I'm doing it, that means something. It's idiot proof. So you literally just kind of go set up a few things. What styles do you like? And then you can start tweaking your styles. So it's like it took me
Hmm.
4 hours to learn this software.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll Unless something else pops up that seems to be able to reinvent the wheel faster, I don't see a reason to use Vellum or anything else. So I will go with this software probably for all the books I'm doing, at least on my own for now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just stuff like that. All the pieces that you don't know until you dig into it, and then the time it takes to learn it. You don't even master it. I don't think I've mastered anything, but I had
Hmm.
to find a cover designer because that's the one thing I've told people that have reached out in the last year, like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, well, you're limited by your resources for most of us. Most of us that are doing this have families, have full-time jobs.
Hmm.
We love writing. We'd like to be in Fiji, doing this on the beach and not have to think about the financial side of it, but that's not the reality.
Right.
So if you go down the path of doing it on your own, what are your financial constraints? Can you afford a professional editor? Can you afford, a cover designer? And those are two things that borrow and steal if you have to get, because the book
Hmm.
cover is going to sell even if the inside is absolute crap. The book
Hmm.
cover will sell books, but once people start reading that pretty book cover or the pretty book inside the cover and they realize it's crap, that's why you better have an editor that was worth their weight, because your
Hmm.
reputation is going to be in the toilet very quickly if your first 2 pages have five grammatical errors.
Sure.
You're done.
And the interesting thing about that to me is, agents have mostly taken over the spot of like first editors for a
Right.
lot of writers who are going the traditional route, right?
Correct.
So, because all of these publishing houses have fired their middle tier of editors, the
Hmm.
proofreaders are gone, and I never feel really bad if somebody finds a typo in one of my books because I'm always like, look, there's not a professional at this level who is, like,
100%.
who's doing it. When Putnam and when, all of the big five publishers also don't have those same kind of proofreaders anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel too bad about it, but you're right. It makes me when I do see a typo, makes me cringe for another person, makes me cringe
Hmm.
for another author.
And you're gonna find them. It's just you don't want to have the volume of it. So
Yeah,
if you're in
absolutely.
a position, because I don't trust the software. I use software. I use Pro Writing
Mhm.
Aid.
Mhm.
I was using it right before we came on. I'm going through breach of trust one last time before my editor's actually in Greece. So
Oh,
before
wow.
before it goes to my editor in Greece, and yeah, it's crazy. My editor's in Greece. My cover guy's in Serbia. One thing I found from a cost perspective, and I'm rah rah. I love America, but I'm paying the bills. So if
Hmm.
I can find someone that does just as good of a job, but they're 50% of the cost, I'm gonna gravitate to that. At least when I'm getting going and every dime matters,
Yeah.
with like marketing. I'm not gonna go market money to lose money. If I'm marketing something, I at least got to get my marketing money back. And that's the scary thing of there's so many people out there that will say, "Hey, Bobby, I can get you 400 book sales. Give me $500." I know so many people that have spent $500 and they haven't even seen their numbers go up. And it's
Hmm.
just like, that's insane. That's
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, I think about what you're talking about with the, the cheaper uh the cheaper labor
Yeah,
cost, right? Man, that's free market economics right there.
exactly.
I mean, it really is.
A
I
hundred
can't
percent.
blame you. Cannot blame you for that one at all.
No, not when you're paying the. One of my friends uses the guy in Australia for his book covers and top-notch book covers. They compete with, and some of these people that I've just connected with overseas. It's like, Putnam or Simon and Schuster. These covers aren't. You don't look at the covers and go, oh yeah, self-published book. No, they totally compete with what these big publishers are putting out. So if you can find someone with that eye, and the
Mhm.
other thing too that you need to find, and it's the part I didn't know. I first person to help me with a cover didn't know how to do all the Amazon and all the setups for all the other systems that you have to put this through to, to get it out into the masses. And
Mhm.
if you don't know that each one works different and how to do the layouts, it doesn't work. So that was the other thing when I got this cover guy. I'm like, these are the things I need this book to go out to. Can you do if I give you the specifics, can you do the covers to those? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, then I don't have to think about it. Because one less thing for me to think about means I have more time to maybe write. That's funny.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
It's interesting to me. I've been really fortunate with covers. I've had three books out, three with Shotgun Honey, three
Hmm.
really good covers, three eye-catching covers. Very pleased with that.
Yeah.
Like the books look fantastic. For a small house, Shotgun
Hmm.
Honey does really good work.
Yeah, they do.
It is one of those things where there's nothing wrong with being at a small house. There's nothing wrong with publishing yourself.
Hmm.
You and we talked about this off camera a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
it's all work.
Yes.
Wherever you publish, you have to be prepared to do the work
Hmm.
of getting your name out there. Just because you're going to be published by Penguin Random House, or just because you're going to be published by whomever, if say
Hmm.
Thomas and Mercer or
Yeah.
whomever, right? Just because you're going to be published by them, that's not going to get you everything that you want. You're going to have to go out and pursue
Right.
opportunities for, interviews, for podcasts, for, maybe writing a guest column for Crime Reads or writing a guest column for Mystery Tribune,
Hmm.
something like that. All of that stuff you have to pursue on your own, because even if they assign you a publicist, they do the work before the book comes out.
Hmm.
And then you have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, you really do. And the pressure I think that's put on because my publishing experience is in this digital age since anyone could publish in a way.
Mhm.
Um, and people that published, 30 years ago and then are now, kind of got moved into that, their experiences back then were so much different.
Oh yeah.
The experiences we have now of, yeah, you're not just a writer, you are a marketer, and you might not be a very good marketer. That's okay. You're not going to be the best marketing. That's the other thing I had to learn years ago, and I learned that with dealing with a small publisher and all that is nobody can do okay, not nobody. Nobody's always a bad word to use. Very, very few people can do everything really good.
Mhm.
So you stay in your lane. Like kind of I was talking about before is I'm good at writing. I'm pretty good at marketing, I think. I
Mhm.
don't need to be professionally editing a book. Now I need to put together a book that's as well edited as possible.
Mhm.
Because I don't need to have 10 grammatical errors on every page. An editor's gonna be very pissed at me and charge me a lot more money because of all the work I'm gonna make on them. But I need a professional set of eyes that can do the editing, just like I need a professional designer who can do a cover. So
Mhm.
as best as you can, try to stay in your lane and let professionals handle their piece when you can afford it.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I mean, I know
Sure.
you're interviewing me supposedly, but I got
This is a free for all. It's Joe Rogan without the 250 million, buddy.
but it's the journalist in me because I want to know stuff,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I know that back in the day,
Hmm.
and maybe up until 10 years ago, maybe even more recently, um, people used to really kind of judge um, folks for self-publishing,
Right.
but I know that you had success with the Body Man, with a small publisher
Hmm.
yourself.
Yep.
Um, did you feel any trepidation, number one, of going indie? Number two, has anyone reacted to it in a negative way?
100%. I held off going indie for 7 years. So I finished my first novel in 2014.
Hmm.
Started doing the traditional thing, and I've told the story before, so I won't bore listeners. But I didn't have a website, I didn't have social media, and I started querying agents. I didn't know what I was doing, and the first agent that was interested in me were like, "What's your Twitter account and where's your webpage and all that?" I'm like, "Social media is for suckers. I don't have any of that." And they're like, then you don't have us, basically come back when you've got a following, a fan base. So it's like, how can I have a fan base? I don't have anything out. But um, so I tried the traditional route for really better part of 6 years and three novels. And it wasn't until The Body Man where I was kind of just getting that frustration of, man, this series isn't catching. And I had people read it. They were like, this are really good books. I'm like,
Hmm.
well, why isn't it getting picked up? And I had some best-selling author, or one best-selling author in particular, is like, hey, while you're querying the next novel, why don't you take one of those first novels and just self-publish it? And I'm like, no. And there was part of me that looked at it as I was cheapening my product. That, man, that's the easy button. The easy button is self-publish. Anybody can push that button.
Hmm.
But more so, it was, I envisioned it was going to be a tremendous amount of work, which is what it absolutely was. Now that I've gone through it I've done it for two things basically. I did it for Ransom Daughter last fall. That was kind of my foray into self-publishing. And then in a small portion, I did it with re-releasing The Body Man. So the publisher, for people that don't know, the publisher published Body Man in November of 2021 and went out of business end of last year, end of 2023, and the rights reverted back to me. So then I knew it was happening. It was about 6 months where I knew it was going to happen, or it was anticipating. I didn't know when it would actually happen. So I kind of had to have a come to Jesus moment of, what do I do? Do I start this whole process again and try to get the Body Man picked up by a different publisher, a different small publisher, try to get an agent with it? And at that point, I was like, man, it's already sold really well, but not like astronomically well that I'm gonna get, Penguin drooling over me. It's like,
Hmm.
why don't I just put it out? So I kind of decided at that point earlier, mid last year, to start my own brand. So man, I'll just dump it out under my own brand because I've built a following, I've got a marketing machine that's working. And then I can just take, and I didn't need to do much. I needed a cover. I'd already had it professionally edited. And I actually, what I did, which was a little different, was the publisher made a bunch of changes when they published it. I reverted back and used the version I had professionally edited before they got it. So
Hmm.
that's what I republished as my second edition.
Gotcha.
It kind of took some of their tweaks out. The story was exactly the same. Kind of
Hmm.
took some of the personalization that the publisher had done or changes, and also cut back like 15% of the word count. And
Hmm.
some of that too was from economics, because once I start learning the process of how this works, you're paying per page one way or another. Whether
Oh yeah.
you're paying a physical amount of money to have something printed, or you're paying in less royalties.
Hmm.
There's a cost to everything. So, um, yeah, so I went that route, and I don't regret going that route. And like we talked offline, in the next 24 months, I have an pretty ambitious plan to come out with four more novels under my
Hmm.
own brand. While working on a couple other things that I do still, I haven't given up on traditional publishing.
Hmm.
Um, what I kind of had to, my come to Jesus conversation with myself the last year and a half with things going on with the publisher was, what do I want out of this experience? Because you and I probably both know people that have agents, and they might even be well-known big name agents. And some of
Hmm.
those same people do not have a book out for
Yeah.
years. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want an agent or do you want to publish? And
Hmm.
sometimes that doesn't go hand in hand.
Hmm.
So then you have to start looking at other avenues, whether it's going to a small publisher that doesn't require agents, or possibly self-publishing. So yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot to, and that's almost like a full podcast. Probably just talk about
Hmm.
unpacking of going traditional versus small publisher versus indie. Um, to me, the biggest thing was I wanted my words out there. I have a finance job. My day-to-day job is a finance job. I'm very blessed with it, but if I started, today's a Sunday when we're filming this. If Monday morning the company said, "Hey, Eric, it's been great, but not that great, you're done,"
Mhm.
there would be nothing. I mean, there would be showing of what I have in my life, obviously, my house, my, food, but I've survived this period in life. But there would be nothing going forward to say, "Hey, kids, this is what I did for 20 years." Nothing.
Right.
I have no files, no nothing. It's all finance, it's all digital.
Mhm.
Versus now, I've got shelves of books now that, man, I look at it in the scheme of life and aging that I'll have something to give to my kids. They'll have a
Yeah.
little piece of my soul long
Yeah.
after my physical body is gone because they have my books. So I
Mhm.
was more interested in, man, I'd rather have my stories out there and what I want to share with the world versus waiting 10 years for an agent or waiting, saying I have to have a big five or big four publisher and I have to have a big advance and I have to have this and that. It's like, I want that like everyone else wants that. That doesn't make me get up in the morning and push myself, though. That's something that I hope happens, but I'm putting it in its proper context for me.
I get that. For me, and I think I love that it's just the way that you look at it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so Magic City Blues was my second book.
Hmm.
Living the Gimmick did really well. Living the Gimmick did really, really well. Magic City Blues did not do as well. It
Hmm.
had, the sophomore author problem of,
Sophomore slump. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. However, I could probably get, and the reason I'm pointing is because I have a poster of the Magic City Blues cover on my wall here at my desk.
Is
Uh,
Randy Macho Man Savage back there? Hold on. No,
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 no, no, hold on. I'll turn around and you
no,
can see.
no, no, no,
We
no.
won't talk about how messy my desk is, but you will note
Love
newspaper
it.
covers, Magic City Blues. Oh,
Love it.
just a few awards, no big deal, nothing like that. But um, I have the other two Magic City Blues, like two sequels for Magic City Blues planned out in my head.
Hmm.
I know what they are,
Right.
and I could probably write each of them in about 3 months.
Okay.
Just the first draft, right?
Hmm.
Because I know those characters. I know the voice that I would write that in,
Right.
and it would be fairly easy.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to do that yet.
Yeah.
I want True Believers to land me an agent.
Hmm.
Then I want to have the conversation with the agent
Yeah.
of, hey, while you're shopping True Believers, I'd like to write these two books,
Hmm.
you know. Um, or hey, how do we, how could we get the rights to Magic City Blues back
Right.
and produce it all as like a, with one house.
Hmm.
It's, I and I think I've name dropped Putnam already, but Robert B. Parker, who is one of my idols,
Hmm.
was published by them for almost the entirety of his career.
Right.
And if they're going to give Parker money, they could give Parker light money.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
I'm just saying, it is one of those things when I love hearing your perspective on it because my perspective is slightly different, but I think yours is really valuable. I was talking with name drop coming up here. I was talking with Sean Cosby, the lovely and talented S.A. Cosby.
He's in my notes of people right over here that you can't see.
So, and one of the things for me,
Someone
man,
who's not successful at all. I mean,
no, no, no,
it's only
no,
Sean. I mean,
yeah, Sean's not successful at all unless you think about winning all of the awards and selling all the books and getting on the president's summer reading list a couple times. Not otherwise not successful whatsoever. Just from a financial and spiritual and physical, you know, uh, standpoint. But other than that, really,
other than that.
yeah. So Sean is one of my really good friends,
Hmm.
and we're talking, and his perspective is this: everything in publishing takes forever.
Yeah.
You know, True Believers is a good book. Um, However, if it lands me an agent, I'm probably going to have to rewrite it.
Hmm.
They're going to give me notes, to, hey, the story needs to do this or to do this
Right.
and in order to be published at a high level. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. I'm supposed to be a professional writer,
Mm-hmm.
and rewrite is part of being a professional writer.
Right.
And being open to critique from another professional is
Mm-hmm.
part of your job. So that might take a year.
Yeah.
That might take, that amount of time. And then you might be on sub for 18 months.
Right.
And then if it gets bought, then there is probably a 2-year window
Mm-hmm.
of, at the earliest, you know,
Yeah,
because
5 years is not
yeah.
out of the realm of possibility for it. Correct.
So the because when you sell it, not only will you have to rewrite it for your agent, most likely, you will then have rewrite suggestions from the publishing house
Mm-hmm.
as well,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's traditional publishing takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I am kind of on I'm kind of hybrid. I'm kind of in the middle. All
Mm-hmm.
right. I'm like you. I want to have more of my work out there
Mm-hmm.
so that people don't forget about me. If
Yeah.
this book sells and it takes 5 years to come out,
Yeah.
you I want to have other books out there where people can be like, who's this Bobby Mathews guy?
Right.
You know, um, what's he done for me lately?
100%.
So
100%. Absolutely.
because that's one of the reasons that I write short stories,
Mm-hmm.
because every so often, and I didn't write many last year, and I didn't, and I'm not for personal reasons. I know we're going to probably get into this, but I've had a really rough 15 months or
You
so.
have, yeah.
Uh, so I haven't really been concentrating on writing since I finished True Believers.
Mm-hmm.
I've been just kind of taking some time off, trying to heal up and do a lot of reading, catching
Mm-hmm.
up on people whose work I really like and admire,
Mm-hmm.
and authors who I've never read before. So, one of the reasons that I would do short stories, though, is because you hit a good short story and it goes all over social media. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that's not bad.
Right.
Uh, think about Jordan Harper, who had My Violent Year in Southwest Review, which
Mm-hmm.
might be the best short story I've read in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal piece of work. And Jordan doesn't write fast. Jordan doesn't publish fast
Right.
because he's also, a showrunner for TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, he's writing TV and then he's also writing books. And for him to have a short story like that out, it's just a good reminder of this is who Jordan Harper is,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And there's a reason that he's on a different level than the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to stay. It's hard to say you need to stay relevant, but you do. You need to stay relevant in the eyes of the audience because you can spend a couple years, have a good book out, and build a solid audience. And then if you take 5 years off, you know, good luck. You
Yeah,
might have the most of the audience stick with you, but there's a good chance you're going to lose a large portion of it because they're going to move on to the next author. And
absolutely.
people, of course, don't read just one author, but if they're only reading 40 books a year and Bobby Mathews doesn't come out with a book for several years, that 40th spot that Bobby was filling, or whatever number it was, it's going to get filled by somebody else that's putting books out.
And I mean, 40 is a big number for a lot of people,
Oh, yeah, that's a bad number to probably use, but yes,
Yeah,
correct. That is a lot.
20 maybe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so not like I'm trying to read 52 books this year, which is about on a good year, that's what I would hit.
Hmm.
Uh, I do know some people who will read north of 100, and I can't do that. I
Yep.
got I got a wife and kids and a job. I got to,
Exactly. Well, like we were talking about offline, I've got in the last month, I've gotten three different authors that said, "Hey, would you mind kicking the tires on this and give me a blurb and tell me what you think?" And so
Mhm,
many people have done that for me that, my answer is yes. It's just
mhm.
how do I make that? Like I got a novella a couple days ago and I told the person that sent it to me and they said, "No rush." And I'm like, good because I
Yeah.
have literally 10 days to go through 300 more pages of my book that has to go to the editor.
Hmm.
Plus, I got someone else's book in the queue ahead of you, and I'm like, crap, okay, maybe I can start that in about 3 weeks. But and I do a lot of my reading at night. I do a lot of my writing at night too. But once I get done with my writing, I'm normally doing some marketing, and
Hmm.
then I'm laying down and I'll grab my either Kindle or if I have a physical book, I'll start going through it. But my problem is, at 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, I'll sometimes read, 5 pages and fall asleep.
Yeah.
So, and that takes a long time to read a 400-page book if you're knocking out 5 pages at a time. It's not feasible. So I have
Yeah.
to find time other times to do it, but it's a struggle.
The hard part is, and you know this as well as anybody, you can write a hell of a book, and if you're pursuing traditional publication, there's no guarantees.
Right.
You may have written just a phenomenal book,
Hmm.
and and an agent may never say yes to you.
Yep.
You may have written a phenomenal book, and a an agent may say yes, and a publishing house never says yes.
Correct.
I have a good friend who uh, co-wrote an excellent noir novel with I won't say an established name, but if I said who it was, you would know. I don't
Hmm.
want I don't want to jinx anybody, so I'm not gonna call names. I won't
Hmm.
name drop in this specific instance, but um, phenomenal work, right? Just an incredibly compelling dark novel,
Hmm.
and they can't. They got an agent.
Yeah.
They can't get a publishing house
Yeah.
right now
Right.
to take a flyer on it. I think probably because it is so dark.
Hmm.
I mean, I think everybody wants a note of hope at the
Right.
end of the book.
Yes.
To have a book that is, no matter how great it is, to have that downbeat ending. I
Hmm.
think that's always going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, it is.
But it's
100%.
it's also like, man, I read that and I'm like, that's just phenomenal work. Like
Right.
as far as putting together the story and everything making sense and everything
Hmm.
being compelling, it's just so dark. Um,
Yeah.
and I say that having, True Believers is very dark. True Believers, the book that I just finished, um, involves a non-binary child being kidnapped and undergoing kind of a half-assed re-education
Mm.
thing,
Hmm.
and it's very dark.
Hmm.
That you think about that if you're a non-binary person and somebody wants you to either be male or female, or
Hmm.
they want you to be whatever you were assigned at birth, right? Um, and that's not who you are as a person, or at least in your mind, that is not who you are as a person. That's
Right.
not, you know, um, not to get silly about it, but like I think about Picard and Star Trek, uh, the Next Generation. There are four lights, kind of thing.
Hmm.
When so um, you do when you're writing noir or you're writing really dark stuff, you run a risk of
Right.
somebody going, I can't publish that.
Yeah.
And then, it might be time to look into self-publishing it or
Right.
publishing it with smaller press.
Yeah. Well,
You
and
know.
that's the thing. You've got to look at it from the publisher isn't trying to be mean to you, but the publisher is looking at it from purely a numbers perspective, not like, hey, this story is really connecting with me. Now they probably like that, and I'm not a big publisher, so I don't know what they think, but my assumption is they'd like, hey, this is a great story, good, but no, it's the bean counter saying how much blood can we squeeze out of this thing? And if it hits a certain matrix that hey, we think we can take this book, get it for this amount, agree to pay this, and we think it's going to return this
Mm-hmm.
all day long. So if got a dark story that they don't, and also
Mm-hmm.
they know enough of the tastes of what people want that those are the stories they want.
Mhm.
because they know they can sell them. And I get that. And like I said, I tried the traditional route for years. No disrespect to that, and I probably will continue to try that in the future. But at the end of the day, too, is man, I don't want to just write something to please this person up here that's just trying to make money off it.
Mhm.
Ultimately, who I write for is myself. I
Mhm.
write the stories that get me excited, that when I get done and I finish a chapter and I go, damn, that was
Mhm.
good. If I can say that to myself, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
If Bobby Mathews likes that,
Yeah.
cool. That makes me happy. It
Yeah.
doesn't make me as happy as when I read it and go, I did what I wanted to
Oh
do.
yeah.
That's
You
my
can't
juice.
you can't do it. You can't do it just for the money. You can't, but what's the Stephen King thing? You don't just do it for the money, because if you do it for the money, you're a monkey,
Yeah,
you know? Um, I write, I write weird shit. Um, and I write it because it's what speaks to me,
right.
you know? Yeah,
100%.
I write it because, there is a story in Negative Tilt, um, that to me is, and it's never anybody's favorite story, I don't think, but it is almost a platonic love story
Hmm.
where a guy sees his best friend from high school, who happens to be female, for the first time in 20 something years at her father's funeral.
Okay.
Right? And going through that story and doing the, you know, kind of competing timelines of the last time he had seen her, which was in the same church that the
Mm.
funeral was taking place in, only it's her wedding day.
Hmm.
And, like stuff like that, and seeing those same emotions and those same beats
Yeah.
in each of these two competing timelines, that shit is what I live for.
Hmm.
Like that right there. Have I just told you a story about a person that has revealed something about these two characters that you would not have expected?
Hmm.
Have I just revealed to you in this story maybe something about the author that you not didn't expect?
Right.
Did uh, I said this in an interview, I think for Mystery Tribune. Um, where can I hit you and how hard can I hit you
Hmm.
to get the most reaction? You
Yeah.
know, right? And honestly, I'm hitting myself there
Yeah.
too. That, like, if it punches me first,
Right.
I got a pretty good idea that it's going to punch you.
Hmm. 100%. Well, and transition that into what's gone on with you for the past year, which you've been open about. And again, I asked you before we came on to make sure we could talk about it, but just the loss that's occurred and how that affects you. I guess not really a question as much as, but can you talk about how from has that made you pull back and not want to write or changed what you wanted to write after, losing your mom and your dad and your brother and just, kind of almost like a domino of, life altering events for any
Yeah.
any person and that has a consequence to them, maybe creatively or emotionally of especially. How has that affected you from a writer's perspective in the last year?
So, for those of you who don't know, like, over a 15-month period, I lost five people in my family,
Mm,
which is insane.
yeah,
Um, and it has been incredibly hard.
yeah.
And that's uh, the truth of the matter is my mom went downhill really quickly in 2022,
Hmm.
passed away in November. And then in July of last year, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Hmm.
Um, Lifelong smoker, like since he was 10 years old.
Right.
Lived to 84. So, what are you going to tell the old man? Um, so,
The government used to say these were good for us.
right,
They gave them out in the with rations in World War II. I mean, come
right.
on. How could they be bad?
So, and my dad was a just a tough dude.
Hmm.
And he fought that disease as hard as I think anybody could.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the cure is what killed him rather than the disease. Like the disease would have killed him, but they had, because of where the tumors were,
Hmm.
he had a major tumor right above where his lungs split off.
Okay.
So that tumor was going to close up his esophagus. It was going to
His
block off,
airway. Yeah.
yeah, or his airway, right?
Hmm.
So they had to be so aggressive with the treatment.
Hmm.
His body could not take it and finally shut down in January of this year.
Yeah.
Um, getting to your question, True Believers probably kept me sane.
Hmm.
I finished True Believers, I think, in November
Okay.
of 2023, and I let it sit for a little bit, and um, I stayed with my dad a good bit
Hmm.
during his, like, I live in Birmingham. My dad lived in Enterprise, Alabama, which is about 3 hours south of here.
Hmm.
Uh, so I would go down for several days a week and stay at my parents' house
Hmm.
and hang out with him and help him through everything. My day job was kind enough to give me an extended leave of absence where I could work remotely.
Okay.
I did not have to be in the office, which was great.
Hmm.
Um, so I would work on the book. Um, I'd work on the book. I would fix breakfast for my dad. We would talk. I would take him to uh, his appointments and whatnot, and we knew that this was most likely fatal.
Hmm.
He had maybe a 20% chance, maybe less, of even the treatment working.
Yeah.
We understood that, but he wanted to fight it, and he wanted to beat it.
Hmm.
And so I would work on the book some, and when I finished the book, I got it bound and gave it to him.
Mm.
The last thing that he rationally did. So he passed January 9th. I think his last rational evening, he was reading some of it before it, and he looked up from it when he was done. He said, "These people are crazy," and which is exactly what I knew he would do. It,
Exactly.
um, so in some ways, True Believer is really important to me.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the last thing my dad saw of me.
Hmm.
And this, Living the Gimmick is dedicated to my dad.
Right,
Magic City,
100%.
yeah, Magic City Blues is dedicated to my mom, even though she
Hmm.
wasn't around to see it
Hmm.
published. I had started kind of on the road of being this novelist that I had always wanted to do, and my parents were super, super supportive. So
Yeah.
anyway, I've rambled some, but
No,
here's
you
my
haven't at all. You shared what's going on in your journey, and the power behind knowing that that's one of the last things your dad really, probably if not the last thing your dad read, that though can be a memory for you going forward that can
absolutely.
just bring you joy that, hey, you know what? At some point, we're all going to lose our parents, or
Yeah.
unless we go before our parents. And to know that something that you wrote and something that you poured your heart into is the last thing he got to enjoy, man,
Mhm.
there's power behind that. I think there's hope behind that as well. That again, as writers, that we can create something that we can share with those we care about. Because ultimately, what else really does matter?
Oh, absolutely. The interesting thing, one of the things in one of the stories in Negative Tilt is called My Father's Guns.
Hmm.
My dad in his old age, and this is the impetus of the story, right? Um, my dad became convinced that the Democrats are going to come take our guns. Um, so my dad kind of built up a small armory,
I got
and
a 50 cal by my front door right now, ready for him to come. What are you talking about?
I
I
mean,
live in the South. Of course they're coming for him. Like, come on.
look, I am a Southerner, I am a liberal, and I own guns. But the Southern liberal is a different breed than the Northern liberal
I grew
or
up
the
in Connecticut.
South.
I know, trust me.
I mean, um, I it was disappointing to see, but my dad wanted me to take care of his gun collection after he had passed,
Hmm.
right? Like the guns were coming to me.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the impetus of the story. It made it a really personal
Right.
story, right? After I knew that the guns were coming to me, I sat down and I wrote my father's guns. Because what the hell am I going to do with a riot gun? Number one, what am I going to do with all of these strange and odd guns that now suddenly have a home in my house where I have.
I was going to suggest we go rob a bank next weekend, Bobby. I mean, come on. They're
I
not
mean,
registered to me. This sounds great. Hold
they're not
on.
registered to me either.
If
I
Eric and Bobby are riding around in Ferraris in a couple of weeks, just don't
right.
ask where we got the money,
I
okay?
mean, that's your second Ferrari, right? That would be your second one. You're the
I don't talk about the first one.
you're the finance guy. You're the finance guy. Come on.
If only people knew. My
I get
2014 Honda Accord keeps running, is all I gotta say. 273,000 miles on it.
Woo. I know you look, I know Hondas do not quit. It's tough to wear a Honda out.
Manual too, 6 speed. So I'm hoping that one will keep driving way past the Rapture, basically. Like keep
So,
going for a while, baby.
I mean, that's the thing, guys who drive stick now, you know that they can actually drive. So because no one
That
has to,
prepares me for the Ferrari you're gonna get after our bank
right?
heist too.
Absolutely.
So see?
Don't they I think they use paddle shifters now. That'd be weird. Um, I mean, I try it, but um so I wrote this story and it's really kind of a heartfelt like family dynamic story
Hmm.
as opposed to a crime story.
Yeah.
But and like some of the guns were that I kept were like my paternal grandfather's single shot 22 rifle,
Hmm.
right? Something like that. My dad's Sig Sauer, right? That's
Yeah.
my everyday carry
Hmm.
weapon, right? If I carried every day, which of course I don't. Um,
Me neither.
we're never worried about other people in this crazy world, in this crazy country.
They're
Never,
all sane.
especially when they're driving. Um, but and like my mom had and I have it now too, and I've kept it. My mom had a 9-shot revolver, like an
Hmm.
old west style
Oh yeah.
revolver that looks like a 6-shooter but is not.
But it's yeah, that's crazy.
So anyway, uh you know some of this tragedy has produced some art. Whether it's
Hmm.
good art or not is not necessarily for me to say. But this year I kind of committed, and I probably overcommitted because I can feel the itch
Hmm.
to start writing again. I'm ignoring it right now
Right.
because even though I feel the itch, I'm not ready.
Hmm.
So I said basically 2024, I'm reading a lot
Okay.
this year. I'm reading, I'm concentrating on healing, concentrating on just dealing emotionally with the stuff.
Hmm.
And you know this about writing. When you have emotional shit going on, it goes on the page.
Yeah.
Whether whether it's germane to your book or your story or whatever, it's going to work its way out,
Right.
you know?
I had almost a year of separation, and I tried writing multiple times during that separation, and I did not keep a single document of what I wrote because as I read through it, I'm like, dear God, I'm gonna go to prison. This is
Yeah.
not good. It's horrible because I was raw, I was upset,
Yeah.
I was hurt, I was broken, and I couldn't make a nice character that was like, we love everybody. keep your
Yeah.
guns, keep any. No, it was fire and brimstone because I was mad, and so it was necessary, but it was
Mhm.
nothing that I would ever want to reread myself or
Mhm.
force on anybody else. So it was
Yeah.
cathartic.
On the other side of that, you have somebody like Jess Lowry, who wrote The Quarry Girls, which won
Hmm.
an Anthony this past year, right?
Yep.
Uh, who back in 2001 or so, she was 8 months pregnant and her husband completed suicide.
Mm,
So you read some of
wow.
her stuff,
Yeah.
and she's working some things out on the page.
Hmm.
And she's been, and I don't feel like I'm telling any tale out of school there. That's kind of a public story
Hmm.
that she's acknowledged and she's talked about.
Yeah.
And I think like putting some of that, the depth of that emotion onto the page,
Yeah.
the way she did it, and this too, there are constructive ways to do it, and there are destructive ways to do it.
Hmm.
Um, I think that the way that she did it was constructive, and I think it kind of parts of it still appear in her work.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I mean that's a devastating thing to have happen.
Right.
Um, I think a lot of what I will probably be doing going forward, I think that my stuff probably will come from a darker place for a while,
Hmm.
just because I think that we don't talk enough about grief. And
Yeah.
there are different kinds of grief.
Sure.
Like you were grieving for your relationship,
Hmm.
you're grieving for your marriage while you were writing during that
Right.
period. Um, and you grieve for family members who have passed. You grieve for relationships that may be over.
Hmm.
You may grieve the loss of a national championship. I don't know. You know,
Well, if you're from Bama, you might. I mean, come
yeah.
on.
So,
You know.
I mean, these things are important down here. Um, I don't know what to tell you. They are, but
They are.
you have, I think grief is a huge thing in everyone's life, and we have a tendency as a society to like try to push past it.
Yeah, push it under the rug and ignore it
Try to,
almost.
yeah, try to
Yeah.
get over it and go on, right? Like I work for a pretty good company. Like our bereavement leave is 3 days.
I don't
So,
even know what I work for a Fortune 500 company. Honestly, off the top of my head, I want to say it's either 2 or 4. I just read the rule, the handbook recently. 2 or 4
yeah,
days. So it's small in comparison.
yeah,
Yeah, where if you lost your spouse or your child, really? Go
yeah,
back to go back to those journal entries on Thursday, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think so.
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So it's one of those things where you deal with grief and you process it. And I think that if it's real grief, I don't think it ever ends.
No.
I think it transforms.
Hmm.
I think it transforms. I think it becomes something new,
Right.
something different. Um, and I hope that I'll be able to put some of that onto the page. Um, and I also think that over the last year or so, I've really tried to. So let me back up. I have been in a place where like the guys that are on my Mount Rushmore are Donald Westlake and Elmore Leonard and Larry Block and
Hmm.
Robert B. Parker, right? That's my Mount Rushmore.
Right.
Those are the guys I always want to write like. I'm a guy from Podunk, Alabama. I can I never wanted to be a Southern writer.
Hmm.
I never wanted to be another Faulkner. I never wanted to be a Flannery O'Connor. I never wanted to be somebody like that, right?
Right.
Or even a Sean Cosby. Although Sean, I would take the advance. But
Good move. Good move.
so right.
From a
So
finance perspective, smart move.
yeah, absolutely. But last year I went to the conference for the book in Oxford, Mississippi,
Hmm.
and I got to talk to and meet some really phenomenal Southern writers, some guys
Hmm.
who are just guys, men and women who are doing phenomenal work in the realm of Southern fiction. And I began to feel at home
Hmm.
in a way that I probably never had in the standard crime or mystery or
Hmm.
PI genre,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
So, and it really colored True Believers. It
Mm.
really gave me almost permission to say, dig into the dirt road that you grew up on, dig
Hmm.
into the red clay background,
Yeah.
dig into the heat and the humidity and the desperation and the you know, the deeply conservative religious background,
Hmm.
things like that. So, um, that was a really good thing, and I think probably going forward, you're going to see me deepening the things that I do, or at
Yeah.
least I hope so.
Well, and I wonder now that you're saying that and just talking about how the grief affects things, I wonder sometimes, and I'm thinking out loud, which might not make a lot of sense, but like you said, with coming up from the South, where you're almost running away from those stereotypes. And man,
Mm,
I don't want to fill my writing with that. Maybe there's an element of making peace with that so that
mhm.
you can move forward. Because
Absolutely.
I grew up in New England,
Mhm.
which I don't know, there's not as much said about New England as there are from like coming from the deep South, but I've lived out west for a while. I lived in the mid-Atlantic states. I've been to like 7, 8 different states I've lived in 47 years. But now I'm in kind of I guess you might be in the buckle of the Bible Belt. I'm in part of I don't know. I'm near the Loop or whatever. I'm in Western
Yeah.
North Carolina, whatever part of the belt I'm on. I'm in part of it. Um,
We are either the buckle or we're that like weird part where you've had your belt where you had to like cut your belt
yeah.
off.
Oh, I thought you were just saying you had to pop new notches in.
It might be that too. It might be that too. So,
Well,
um,
we're both losing weight, so we have to pop
yeah,
new notches in. This is great. So
I look, you're down 25, I'm down 23. I'm gonna try to pass you next week.
you probably will because I fell off the wagon this last week and now I'm having to starve myself again just to make up for it. So I got 20 more to go, but my goal is to do that during the year. So I'm
Mhm.
trying not to. I've had a couple weeks I've lost 2 pounds, which I was like shocked, like, wow, that's great. But I know that's not necessarily sustainable or necessarily healthy. So my
Mhm.
thought more is if I can lose about a half a pound a week through the rest of the year, and but I don't believe in dieting necessarily because I think people diet and they go Weight Watchers or whatever, keto or
Yeah.
whatever, and then once they hit whatever their target is, they go margaritas for everybody,
Yeah.
and they go wild again. Hey, Applebee's tonight and
And
Popeyes
hey,
tomorrow, and you've fat that goes at our age. That weight comes off hard, but it goes on
absolutely.
easy.
Absolutely. What do you mean our age? I am still a young, virile man.
I don't know how old you are. I can ask you though. You're a guy. I'm not offending a
Yeah,
woman by saying how old are you and
absolutely.
how much do you weigh?
I will be so I weigh right now 265 pounds. I'm down from an embarrassing all-time high of 288.
Wow.
So um I am about to turn April 15th, I will turn 53.
Okay.
See,
That's a
the
lot of
reason
time.
nobody ever believes that I'm that old, it's because I'm a fat guy and it fills in the wrinkles. So I'm gonna have to get used to that now of like people going, "Oh
So,
yeah,
so when
you
you
look
lose all your weight, you're gonna need like you got what are the face the
like that
stretching whatever
that
things they do to kind of pull.
yeah, that dermabrasion or whatever that takes out all of the wrinkles and everything."
Once we
Uh
rob our bank and we have a lot of money, we'll go Kardashian it out in Beverly Hills. So
exactly. See, you want to rob the banks. I want to do the financial crimes where you can, you get away with it for a long time and maybe can get out of the country.
I can discuss how to Madoff it with you if you want to have some plans. So, although getting out of the country, I don't suggest the Epstein Island route. I think
No, no.
that will work against you, and the consequences will be. Of course, now we got what P Diddy's in the news now because
Right?
I
I was
give
thinking
up.
Brazil. I was thinking Brazil, just because there's no extradition treaty.
You know, Carnival sounds pretty good too,
I
I
mean,
must
it
say.
always does.
It's on my list of places to go one day.
Just be careful because there's also a high incidence of HIV there. So
Not for that, man. I'd be more afraid of, rich gringo flies down there and they're like, "Hey, ransom." And I'm like, "Man, I wrote a book called Ransom Daughter. I know how this works
right,
out."
you're like,
Nope.
hey, 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 hey. Um,
Oh, too funny.
and I'm with you. I'm kind of losing weight the same way. I am. I've changed the way that I eat,
Yeah.
which is the biggest thing
Hmm.
for me. It's been a lot about portion control
Hmm.
um, and I'm not quote unquote counting calories, but I am incredibly conscious about the kind of things that I put in my body now, you
Right.
know? And one of the things we talked about off camera was, I don't drink any kind of sodas anymore.
Hmm.
Uh, I drink coffee in the morning and I drink water for the rest of the day. So, super helpful. That's
Yeah.
been really good. It's cleared up my skin, made me look beautiful again.
You're gorgeous, Bobby. You're married, so I can't make a play here, and plus I don't go that way, but
Thank you
you're
for both of
gorgeous.
us.
So.
Thank you for both of us.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was in the grocery store and was it Friday night? Not last night, Friday night, and I took my kids to DC this past week. My son, I was telling you off camera, my son got sick on the way to the Capitol. So you got my son in the bushes throwing up as we're looking across the street at the Capitol. That was a super great experience. And then getting him back to the hotel on the subway, he's still throwing up, mind you. So find a nice way to do that where you're not, it's the only option. The car is 15 miles away at Springfield Station
mhm.
or whatever many miles that is. So I got to take him back. I can't Uber it. That's not any better either. Um, and then my daughter got sick on the back end. I was having some minor tiffs with my ex. So Friday night, I'm in the grocery store and I'm like, I'm not drinking this year, but this might be a good night to like
Right?
break that. So
I
I walked to the cooler and I'm like, and I have liquor in the house. I haven't touched it in a long time, but I don't want that. I want something kind of like good tasting, fruity, whatever. So I
mhm.
go over to the Smirnoff Ice and I'm like, a Smirnoff Ice is a good little dessert for me. Pick up the bottle. Of course, there's nothing on there that tells you that. So I Google it real quick. 240 calories and 46 grams of sugar. I was like, hell no, I'm not drinking. I put it right back in. I had water.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you are a guy who is solidly in middle age, like I can't deny it anymore. I'm 7 years maybe I'll be a senior citizen. Oh my God. Um, and by the way, when you get about a week, maybe a month before your 50th birthday, you'll start getting AARP money.
AARP.
It's the most insulting fucking thing.
My buddy Jason Pickle is writing articles for him, and he's in his 50s now, early 50s, and I'm like, Jason, now, oh my goodness, you've arrived.
I'm just like, I'm just like, no, I have more time. Um,
Too funny.
but when you get solidly into middle age and you want to lose weight, the thing that I keep in my head is things are a trade-off, and
Right.
it all comes down to choices.
Yep.
You know, what are you choosing to do? Um, like for me, breakfast often is a banana and a protein bar,
Hmm.
right? Because that's enough to fuel me through a morning workout or you
Right.
know, get me to a point where I can walk during my lunch break and then I take about 5 minutes to eat something at lunch, right?
Hmm.
And now instead of going out and grabbing tacos or
Yeah.
grabbing, a chimichanga, I'm gonna stay here and have a salad.
Hmm.
And it's, you know, is food a reward for you? Is food or alcohol a reward for you? If it is, why? Because you're not a dog. Um,
Correct.
and is it a reward or is it fuel?
Yeah.
And I think that that's
100%.
been yeah, that's been so far that's been a mindset change for me is that I'm trying to look at it as fuel.
Hmm. Smart way to do it. Yeah. For me, I was just starting to feel, I'd been it's several years since my divorce, so I kind of can't use that excuse, but I just got into bad habits. I did it when I was married too, where you got kids, you're going for convenience. I was writing a lot in the evenings, so I'd write, and then when I get done writing, I might have some ice cream or some chips or popcorn or
Oh yeah.
and whatever. But so you dump 400 or 500 calories in your body and then go and then lay down 5 minutes later. Well, you can
Hmm.
get away with that in your 20s, even
Yeah,
maybe in some of your 30s. But once you get in your 40s, your body hates you and it's going to revolt against that. So,
absolutely.
and I'm sure 50s it even hates you more.
Yeah, and the thing I tell people, the one kind of hard and fast rule that I have is I don't eat after 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Because look, about 8:30, I'm looking around going, isn't it bedtime? You know?
I'm trying that, but my issue is nights I don't have my kids, I cram a lot of stuff into, including like going to the fitness center. And I can't do that
Yeah.
till after my 9 to 5 job, which isn't till 5 o'clock most nights. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
times I'm coming home from the gym and I'm hitting the grocery store at 9 o'clock. So
Yeah.
I'm eating dinner at 9:30 and I'm
Yeah.
trying to make it
Yeah.
relatively healthy. But
And you're
then,
also, you got to refuel after you have, and I don't know what you do for workouts, but like, I'm training myself to try to get more into jogging.
yeah.
And so in the past where my metabolism would like welcome me doing weights 4 nights a week or four
Hmm.
days a week, right? Now I think that the weights are about once a week,
Okay.
and I'm concentrating on, what does this do for me for calories, or
Hmm.
number one, for calories burned, number two, for keeping my heart rate up at an extended period of time.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay.
when you get off the treadmill or you get off the elliptical or whatever, you know, how long do you keep your how long does your heart rate stay going? Like
Hmm.
for me, if I'm lifting weights, my heart rate's like pretty much right back to where it was
Right.
within 10 minutes. So 20 minutes later, I still might have a, uh, somewhere in that 85 to 90 range,
Hmm.
right? So, which is elevated enough that it counts as fat burning,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but I'm a weird person in that my resting heart rate's like 52.
That's pretty low.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay.
weird, so
All that good living, Bobby. See?
all that great living. No.
There you go. That Bama living, I tell you.
Hey,
Um,
that's the lifelong non-smoker. I grew up in a house where both of my parents smoked, and I always hated it.
yeah.
So always had great lung capacity and always had like good heart. So
I've
uh,
told my kids I worked at a golf course when I was 12 or 13. I should know the exact age. But I was brought one of the golf carts down in the base, down in the under spot where you washed them and got them all ready one time, and there was a pack of cigarettes, and I never smoked, and I'm like, a couple guys were down there, and I was gonna be cool, and it's like, fire that thing up,
mhm.
take a good old drag. Once I got myself off the ground a couple minutes later, my smoking career was over. I was like, I got one drag out of now I do cigars, and I will admit, and I
Yeah.
post pictures sometimes. Cigar to me is a little dessert. And normally it's a celebratory or I'm with a friend and I maybe have
Mhm.
5 or 6 a year on
Mhm.
average. Some
That's
years I've had
essentially what
zero.
I am the same way. I probably have cut down now to two or three a year.
Yeah.
So it's a and cigars are different. They just are because you're not inhaling them.
Right. And you don't have the chemicals that are added into the nick. You know, yeah, it's a different beast. I'm not saying it's healthy, but
Yeah.
because my kids will be like, "Well, Dad, you're gonna get cancer," da da da. And I'm like, "Well, maybe, but there's a better chance I'm getting it from the produce I'm probably buying at the grocery store than the cigar I'm
It's
having every 2 months."
something will get you. And I think about it this way too, is that everybody has their vice.
Yeah.
My local bookstore yesterday they had a penny a page sale. All right.
Oh
So I
wow.
walk out of the bookstore, I got like a stack like this, right? And
100%.
as when I checked out, I was thinking about it. I was like, it could be worse. It could be drugs. It could be drugs. That's
It's
the
it's not meth. It's just
Yeah,
books.
exactly. Not meth, just books. So,
That's a good. Let's put that on a t-shirt. Maybe that's how we can retire. It's not meth, it's books. It's
that
just
might be
books. So
that might be a winner right
that
there.
might be a winner. That might be a winner. I want to before we transition to the final question. I know we're going to be sensitive about time and listeners and all that. Um, if you don't mind talking about it, and it was in my notes. Again, you can feel like, I don't want to get into that, because I don't know if it's a short conversation. But with Magic City Blues, it was originally you had a deal with a British publisher, right?
You want all the tea.
No,
So
I'm just so there's so many avenues for people to publish, and I'm always curious I'm curious what people learn because again, I don't. We talked about this off air. I don't ever want to get on here because I could tell stories of my experiences or experiences people have shared with me about how absolutely god awful shitty this business can be.
mhm,
There's also some great stories of how great it can be.
mhm,
But to me, if you can kind of help people avoid some of your pitfalls, that's one of the great things about going through hard things in life. So I didn't know if maybe with what your experiences was with that, maybe you could even just talk about kind of a lesson learned or something to avoid. And I don't know what it was about. I remember reading it on your website, I think of.
yeah. So all right. Let's get into it. So I sold Magic City Blues to an outfit called Close to the Bone, which is a British publisher.
Okay.
I found out that, um, and it is a complicated story, and I do have like a long Medium post about this. But essentially, someone associated with that press was um, apparently sending harassing messages to certain women in the publishing
Hmm.
writing
Okay.
sphere. Um, and then come to find out that this person was also apparently a convicted murderer who was working for still incarcerated. Um,
What?
yeah.
This is this
It,
is this is a plot for which this is after you getting back on your
so
writing pony, right?
um,
I mean,
so
geez.
this is, I mean, it was wild. It was crazy. Um, so this person lived is incarcerated in Mississippi. So it's a British publisher, and this guy who is using his internet privileges or whatever, and in prison in Mississippi to do publicity
Wow.
for this publisher. I have no problem whatsoever with rehabilitation.
Right.
Okay. I have zero issue with that. I think that if somebody can be rehabilitated,
Hmm.
uh, that they should be given every chance to be.
Sure.
However, the publisher I felt was dishonest in that they had not revealed that this person was an incarcerated criminal.
Hmm.
Like he had killed a guy down on the beach, I think in Biloxi, somewhere on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, and buried him in a shallow grave on the beach. So, um, and I wouldn't even talk so openly about this, except I got all the receipts,
Yeah, you got right.
right?
Understood.
So everything that I'm saying, I can prove. Um, I so one of the people who was also published by this publisher happened to be a Leo, happened to
Yeah.
be a law enforcement officer, a
Hmm.
federal law enforcement officer, and I've
Okay.
probably just dropped a big enough hint of who it is that you probably know who it is immediately. Me
Probably.
saying, um, so Leos cannot be associated with convicted criminals
Right.
in a business matter, right? Or in relationship, right?
Hmm.
So of I think of any kind. So I felt that the publisher had been less than ethical
Hmm.
by not revealing, hey,
Yeah,
this
not disclosing
person,
that. Yeah.
yeah, like you should disclose that to your authors,
Yeah.
especially if they're going to be law enforcement, especially if they're going to be, potentially, if there's going to be potential legal issues or ramifications where somebody could get terminated
Hmm.
from their job, right? So I called the guy out on it and said, "Hey, listen, I appreciate what you've done for me. It was a dream come true when you purchased Magic City Blues.
Hmm.
I don't think you acted ethically in this instance,
Hmm.
and so I'm going to ask for the rights to my book back."
Hmm.
And, they granted me the rights. They were not happy with it,
Hmm.
clearly not happy with it. But I just, for me,
Hmm.
and this is just for me, I try to, even though I can be a pain in the ass myself, who among us cannot, right? So, Eric, especially. No,
Especially, there's a lot of people that will admit to that too, I'm sure.
but here's the thing: I do try to treat people ethically,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
right? Um, and it bothered me then, and it bothers me now
Hmm.
that this was an unethical thing that this publisher did. The one good thing to come out of this is so the publisher did end up coming clean with their slate of
Mm.
authors.
Okay.
Some people left, some people stayed.
Hmm.
Um, but the guy's name is now on their masthead where it was not, where it had not been
Mm.
beforehand. So now
Hmm.
that's, at least a public acknowledgement of that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I got the rights to Magic City Blues back right after I had sent out Living the Gimmick to
Hmm.
Shotgun.
Yeah.
And so I sent Ron Phillips, who is the guy who owns Shotgun Honey. I
Hmm.
sent him an email and said, "Listen, I had to take this book away from this
Hmm.
publisher, and here is why."
Hmm.
Detailed everything and said, "I know it's longer than uh, what you would normally publish. Would you please consider
Mm.
publishing this?" And within 3 months,
Yeah.
I had a deal for both books.
Wow.
And then Living the Gimmick came out first.
Came out first. Yeah.
So Magic City Blues became the sophomore effort. I became known as the guy who wrote the wrestling book. Yeah, I remember that.
Hey, my childhood was Saturday mornings, you know, Steamboat,
Yeah,
Hogan, Andre the Giant. I mean, you name the list, Iron Sheik,
there
go
are
through
there are so many people who have great memories associated with wrestling, right?
100%.
And look, that book touched a lot of people and they
Miss
loved it.
Elizabeth still
Yeah.
top of the list. My goodness.
Hey, gone too soon. Gone too soon.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my thought is if you're a publisher, you should be acting ethically. And I will say that Shotgun Honey is a good publisher for a small press,
Hmm.
right? Um, they are a good publisher. They have their issues, as does every other publisher.
Correct.
So, I don't know of any writer who is ever 100% happy with their publisher.
Right. Yeah.
Not every writer always wants more. They want more money. They want a bigger advance. They want more investment,
Publicity. Right. 100. Yep.
publicity, all this stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you see guys who are like, I mean, they did okay for me, but they gave so and so, they gave Jeffrey Deaver this deal.
Right.
Well, you're not Jeffrey Deaver.
Yeah.
You're, you know what I mean? That kind of thing, right? They gave so and so this kind of deal. Um, the one thing that I will say, the publishing decision that I'm still amazed by to this day is that probably the best crime novel in the English language in 2022, or I'm sorry, in 2023. Nope. I'm wrong because it came out near Christmas 2022. So it came out too late for awards for that year, right? Was Jordan Harper's The Last King of California.
Jordan's okay.
Yeah, and it was only published in Great Britain.
Hmm.
The fact that that book did not have a US deal
Yeah.
and win everything, I I I am shocked.
Right.
It is a phenomenal book.
Well, that circles that goes back to what we were saying before is you can write such an amazing book and not get an agent or get an agent and not get, go out on sub and not get picked up. And that's the bogey out there that the only thing you can do as an author is write the best book
Yeah.
possible. And what you
Hmm.
might come up against at the end is that someone won't publish it.
Yeah.
So then you have to decide, do I find a way to get it published or do I just say, okay, on to the next one?
Hmm.
And that's the hard because it's like killing your characters, killing your babies in a story. It's like, those are some difficult decisions. And speaking of your experiences with Magic City Blues, I try to tell people because I've had questions about my experience with small publisher, why am I not with a big publisher and all that stuff. It's like, man, you got to just do what works best for you. And what
Hmm.
you do need to do now, it's not possible if there's not full disclosure out there, but you need to look at whoever you're going after, whether it's an agent or a publisher, and say, okay, well, who are they? Who do they represent? What do they have out there?
Hmm.
What can they do better than I can do myself? Because that's
Yeah.
the one thing that I've kind of learned here in the process I've been following. Again, I've said it a couple times in this interview, I'm not against going with a big publisher or even maybe even a mid-range. I don't know if I'll do a small publisher again. Maybe. What my question for any of them is going to be, what can you do that I can't do? And
Yeah.
there's a lot, and trust me, that's not an ego like I do everything right. No, but what can you offer me that I can't do myself? Because if you
Yeah.
can offer only so much more than what I can do, am I willing to give away 85% of my revenue for that?
Hmm.
Why would I? That's insane.
Well,
So
the other
you gotta
part
have
of that,
conversations with yourself.
yeah, the other part about that is, and the answer almost always for a large publisher is we will give you this advance. This is money right now.
Correct.
And I mean, I will say this as a guy who makes a middle class living,
Hmm.
you know, if you offer me my yearly salary or more than that in one lump sum, I'm probably going to give you, everything except the kitchen sink.
Hmm.
I'll give you an
Right.
option on my third kid that I don't have yet, but I'm willing to try.
I'm willing
So
to try to have one for just you guys.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Although my wife says I'll have to line somebody else up for that one.
A surrogate. Back to the Kardashians.
Yeah, I
Surrogate,
know,
man. Just
right?
surrogate that thing. That's
Right?
fine. But no, that's a good and yeah, it's so hard to know. To me, more than the money would be the distribution because
Yeah.
to get my book, now I have a shelf of them ahead above me, and I'm super blessed to have that. It's not old hat, but that feeling of holding your book for the first time does fade after a while.
Hmm.
So for me, kind of those feelings I want to have in the future is yes, I want to hold, Breach of Trust is back behind me and it's an ARC version. I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to holding the hardcover on that sometime, after it comes out.
Absolutely.
I order my copy. But what I really want, what's on my bucket list, is I want to go into an airport on one of my travels and see my book up there. I don't even care that the bestseller. I'm not an idiot. If someone wants to put the name New York Times bestseller in front of my name, I'm okay
Hmm.
with that. But does that motivate me to write a better book or to get up in the morning? No, it doesn't. Probably
Yeah,
because I know how that really works, how
how
you
that
get that.
works and how you have so little control over that,
Correct,
you
100%.
know?
But I want to be able to go in that airport and sign those books. To
Absolutely.
me, that's one of those, and I'll never have that with Bruno Media Publishing with what I have, or I
Right.
can't envision a way that happens. Maybe there's some small bookstores and some select airports that would, if I reach out, would be willing to carry a copy.
So this is going to sound like I'm name dropping, and maybe I am. Curtis Ippolito actually got
Okay.
San Diego International Airport to carry Burying the Newspaper Man.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
And uh, that's an inspiration to me. I really need to do that here for the Birmingham airport.
Yeah, 100%.
But I was just like, wow, that's phenomenal. That's a get.
Yeah, that is a get.
Mm.
I'd go take flights just to go stand in the Charlotte airport up the
I
road
know.
or and just sign books during the day. Like, hey, I'm
Yeah,
here again. Where am I flying? I don't know where I'm flying to today, but I'm signing
yeah.
books.
Doesn't matter where I'm flying to. You want to be flying with this book right here.
This is the one you need in your carry-on. Yeah, why don't you
Exactly.
get two of them? So,
One for you, one for a friend. You're going to
well, and
make a friend on the flight.
that's been a super cool experience for me just doing like local signings and stuff because I've talked now to enough like bestsellers and very successful authors that have told me stories of them flying to St. Louis or whatever city and going to a
Mhm.
book event, at a bookstore and nobody comes.
Yeah.
And I've never had nobody. I've had two, but I've also had dozens. And so to
Hmm.
go to an event and have people buy my book or people, don't know who I am, come up and buy a copy or thank me and whatever, man,
Hmm.
that makes it worth it.
My first signing, I had two people, and I was just like, "Oh, this is okay." They tell me this is what'll happen.
This is what'll
Um,
happen. Right.
I've never had nobody
Yeah.
like you. I think two is the least I've ever had. Um, I had um at a couple of events, Murder in the Magic City
Okay.
last year. So at Murder in the Magic City, which is here in Birmingham, I sold out of every book that I had.
Hmm. That's
Um,
cool.
and this year, the bookstore ordered too many copies of Living the Gimmick, which had already sold out the previous year.
Okay.
But then every copy of Magic City Blues sold out.
That sold out. Okay.
You know, so I'm like, next year, let's bring in about half as many Magic City Blues and maybe 10 copies of Negative Tilt, maybe,
Hmm.
like don't embarrass me by having all these books left here. So
100%. Yeah.
um, but it's such a crapshoot, the whole thing, man.
Yeah.
And it's all you can do is control the work you do
Right.
on at the computer or at your
If
notebook
it's
or
handwritten or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. All you can do is control what you put down. And as far as the book goes,
Right.
and the rest after that is still work. You just
Yeah.
can't, you are never done.
No, you're never done. And once you think you're done, or once you think you're done with the current book, guess what?
You got
Next
another
one.
one coming.
And that's the other thing, like you were talking earlier about, how long it might take for your next project if you get an agent, if you get picked up, which I believe you will. Um, that's a long time out. Once that occurs, then publisher wants one a year because they want to cycle you in of okay, Bobby, you're our
Yeah.
May release every year. So
Yeah.
every May we expect a book from you.
Yeah.
Long before that May, of course, but that's when we want it to come out. So it's such an interesting dynamic of work, work, work so hard to finally get to the spot where they're interested in you, and that could take years. And then it's like, now you better start clicking. Now the real fun's beginning because you have a deadline. You have 6 months to finish this book, and there's
Mm-hmm.
there's not much leeway on that. So
And I know a guy who, and he has a good deal. He also has 7 novels in the can.
wow.
So he is, I'll tell you off camera because I don't want to
No,
out
it's
him.
fine.
But I'll tell you off camera. Um, he had 7 novels finished before he got his first book deal.
Yeah,
So, um, and I mean, like, so for him, he's playing with house money at this point.
right.
He's like, I can coast a little bit.
Yeah, you got a little extra time available
Yeah,
too. Yeah, 100%.
pretty
100%. It's
cool.
such a fascinating business. I'm grateful, but to me, one of the coolest parts of the business, besides getting our stories out there, is meeting someone like yourself, meeting the people that share that same uh craziness, insanity, the desire to have what's going on, between our ears
Hmm.
manifest itself. And it's a beautiful thing.
It is. You realize we also have to have huge egos to do this because what goes on in our brain clearly will be interesting to other people as well. Because
Yeah,
otherwise you just keep it there, right?
right. Well, that's yes, but yeah, there's a couple ways to look at that. There's a couple ways to look at that. Um, hey, so to wrap this up, we'll go deep here with this. This is it, you. This is
Okay.
episode like 8. How many have I filmed of this? I don't know. You probably haven't seen one yet. They just started airing a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But I'm asking kind of the same question at the end to everybody, and so it might have to put your thinking cap on. Um, but I think you'll agree with me that life is like a book where we have a first page and we have a last page. None of us know how many pages are going to fall between that. We don't know what's going to be there. But Bama writer, you are a writer. So you get to write your last page. You have that ability. I'm granting you my big ego. I'm granting you that opportunity. Yeah, right. What does Bobby Mathews' last page? What's it say? We can edit if we need to
Yeah.
think
Now let's see.
of one.
Um, I think before the books, before anything else, I think I wanted to say he was a good dad.
Yeah.
Period. Because at the end of the day, the books matter.
Hmm.
The books absolutely matter. Folks go by Negative Tilt. Available wherever books are sold, except apparently the airport.
For now. For
For
now.
now. For now. But um, so the books are important.
Yeah.
But the real legacy I leave will be those two little boys.
Yeah. 100%.
Um, you know, at the end of the day, if people can say that guy was a good dad who loved his kids more than anything.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, again, playing with house money.
Yeah.
Everything else is just gravy.
Right. Well, we live in such a unique time, but we live in such a blessed existence. I mean, I constantly will sometimes be giving dadisms to my kids and stuff, and I'm like, look, I'm preaching to the choir here. I haven't had some very traumatic, difficult life in the sense of I didn't have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go get the animals ready to go graze or to go plow. And if I didn't do that, one of the kids might die. It
Right?
didn't have, we live in a very blessed time. So, and it gives us that opportunity, I think, sometimes, because for years, life was so much, and it might be that way again before we know it. Anything's possible. It was
Mm-hmm.
about existence that you didn't have the time to give to your kids necessarily.
Yeah.
You didn't have the distraction of technology. So you could spend that could was taken out of the equation. So you kind of could at least have the ability to impart wisdom and knowledge and hopefully some love, hopefully show love. But I don't that wasn't very strong always with males to their kids. But now we live in this opportunity where we can just kind of like love on our kids
Mm-hmm.
and we can be great, for speaking for us, we can be great dads. If we're not, it's our fault, no one else's
Yeah,
fault.
100%. And it is one of those things where, and my dad talked about this. He said, you are always with your kids and you're always around them
Hmm.
and doing things with them. And and he said, I feel bad because I that wasn't always me,
Right.
right? And it wasn't, but like my dad and I shared certain things. We're both readers, and we would find books and give books to one another, and
Hmm.
and talk about those and had those really good conversations. But like I coach my kids in baseball.
Hmm.
Uh, I am with them a lot.
Yeah.
My older boy is a pianist.
Hmm.
He taught himself, so he's on the autism spectrum on a very low level, but he taught himself how to play piano during the pandemic
Okay.
and got into a uh, what is essentially a magnet school. It's the Alabama School of Fine Arts, which is a big deal.
Okay.
Do that, like that. It's almost unheard of to be able to teach yourself piano
Hmm.
and get into the school,
Yeah.
right? So, my 9-year-old is way too smart for his own good, and they're such different kids, and they require such different levels of love
Yeah.
and trust and attention, and just to know that I'm there with them and able to be with them. Um, I'm usually the first face they see in the mornings, you
That's
know,
awesome.
um, and usually the last face they see at night. So
Hmm.
it's a good thing, you
That is
know.
a good thing. Well,
So,
you're a good dad. I love seeing your posts when you post stuff about what you're doing with the kids, whether it's the truck or whatever, taking them with the truck, whatever it might be.
oh, yeah.
I think that's a blessing to have a good dad in life. So keep being a good dad. I know you
I
will.
appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So last thing we want to leave with, of course, is advertising. So if someone wants to go out and get Negative Tilt or Magic City Blues or Living the Gimmick or Prodigal, your first book, what's the best way for them to connect with Bobby
So,
Mathews?
you can get any of you can get Negative Tilt, you can get Magic City Blues, Living the Gimmick, or Prodigal, all off of Amazon. My last name is Matthews, and it is Matthews with one T, and it really is Bobby. It's actually Bobby on the birth certificate. It's not a shortened. It's how you can tell that I'm really Southern. Um, so um, you can also go to shotgunhoney.com. Those books are there. My books are also available via barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, bookshop.com. When I say, wherever books are sold, my Shotgun Honey novels and short story collection can be found there. I will probably, because I have, hold on, wait, let me see. I have about six left that I will be happy to sell to people signed and mail them if you wanted to get a hold of me at Bobby Mathews on Twitter.
There we go. Bobby, thank you for coming on. Go support Bobby, everybody.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. It was good to see you.
It was great to talk to you.